Hello everybody, welcome along. My name is Benjamin Bloom. This is the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. Please leave your bias at the door and join us to talk about Swansea City in the playoffs. That draw at Reading at the weekend locked the playoffs. Brentford won last night, so they're clear in third now. And Swansea, Bournemouth and Barnsley are the remaining teams in there. So we can go ahead and get our reviews done a little bit early. Lots to do here on the channel. I've already done Barnsley, check that out. And we're going to have a look at Swansea. And an interesting season where, for a lot of it, Swansea looked very good. Expectations were high. Some of my more anxious Swansea followers were worried about a possible drop-off. And it came in quite spectacular fashion to take Swansea from the automatic picture into the playoff picture. And we know that is where they're going to finish with 2 games to go at time of recording. Let's get into it and have a think about the whys and wherefores of Swansea's season. So it was semi-final defeat last season. You can see Swansea there in 6th position. 4 wins and a draw in the last 6 games. Look at Nottingham Forest below. 3 draws and 3 defeats in their last 6. It was a spectacular last day swing, last 30 minutes swing of 6 goals and goodness me, 6 points. One team won 4-1, the other team lost 4-1. You know what happened, and Swansea were in the playoffs. There are many scenarios and infinite parallel universes where that didn't happen. But they got in there, didn't they? 6th place finish for the Swans. Lost to Brentford ultimately in Steve Cooper's first season. Have a look there. That's the Who Scored sort of look at the most used 11. Now I know by the end of the season Cooper had got his 3-5-2 sorted. But just look at some of the players in there in last season. Woodman, Bidwell, Roberts, Grimes, Fulton, Mayhew. How many was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Interesting. So less than half his team of this season were present last season. So very much a sense Swansea going from the 2019-20 season into the 2020-21 season, easy for me to say, especially with parachute payments being what they are. Swans moving from year 2 to year 3 in that regard. Ins and outs, a lot of outs actually, through their championship tenure. A summer of transition, and I have to say Cooper does well to regenerate and keep enough continuity to actually improve the league position for the most part this season. There is the recruitment. Jamal Lowe in from Wigan from the administration there. Ryan Manning, Corey Smith. Woodman returns on loan again from Newcastle. Gibbs White. Little bit of fairy dust there from Premier League. I think the intention was for him to be the number 10, the creative guy. It didn't work out that way. Injuries, and he's back in January. Guay returns. Bennett, another one in from Wolves, proven championship quality there. Latabodier, another youngster from loan on the Premier League. And Casey Palmer, Victor Gyökeres, 2 more loans there. The big one on the outs, Joe Rodden, got good money for Burton Salina as well. Peterson, a fee there. Mulder, Van der Horn, Baker, Richardson, Cooper, Asoro, Mackay also got. Probably shouldn't gloss over Van der Horn, who I thought was a very good player at centre-half for Swansea whenever I saw him in the Championship. What we should mention as well is that Rodden went right at the end of the window, didn't he? And, I mean, even though that happened, they did cope with it quite well, and there was a bit of a flurry of deals towards the end of the window. But, as I said, Swansea are guaranteed to either match or better last season's finish. And given you have Rodden going out, Van der Horn going out, Brewster, Gallagher, parachute payments dropping down, I think big picture to either match or possibly beat if they finish 5th, 4th, 3rd, which is still possible, in the next last 2 rounds of the league. Given that churn and that half a team potentially was going to disappear, pretty good continuity through that summer, I have to say. And very good results. They've gone from a team that just scraped 6th place in the most unlikely fashion to just before the halfway point there. That's the year-end position after 22 games. So 1 game before halfway. 40 points from 22. 3rd position, 1 point off automatics. Not quite at the 2 points per game. You can see Norwich are doing that. That makes you title favourites, essentially. If you can keep that up, get 92, you will invariably win the title in the Championship. But just very good, and only 4 defeats as well. You can see them in there against Huddersfield, against Norwich, away at Middlesbrough, away at Derby. Interesting one. They caught them by surprise there, didn't they? I remember doing that game as a watch-along. But look, very good and a definite improvement. And I think looking at it big picture, in terms of what Cooper had to regenerate in the summer, to be there at the end of the year and having improved it, you would expect the trend to be down the longer you're in the Championship. And good. Now, I know I'm going to get some comments saying there were tight games, there were single goal victories. Yes, I will already acknowledge that underlying metrics, whichever of them you want to use, suggested that Swansea were playing both penalty boxes well, as in goalkeeper overperforming, strikers, players who were playing in that position. There were no strikers, were they? Gyökeres didn't seem to work, and Lowe and Mayhew carrying the load. It felt like fine margins in the games, and Swansea often being on the right side of them. Now, that's either the sign of a good team playing that way tactically, or that's a sign of a regression coming if you can't keep outperforming those metrics. Something's got to give, hasn't it? Here's the ins and outs in January. Little tweaks. Whittaker comes in, probably a long-term thing. Hourihane, good signing. Took Aston Villa up. Well, went up with Aston Villa. Maybe Jack Grealish took Aston Villa up and Tammy Abraham, Tyrone Mings. But there you go. Hamer comes in as cover in goal. And 2 very interesting ones there. A couple of United States players. Jordan Morris and Paul Areola. And I believe, Kieran Freeman's in there as well, that there would have been some pace. I think it was Jordan Morris, the one I was told. Look, this is a guy that can add a different dimension, that can run in behind and maybe help where, frankly, since Rhian Brewster, Ollie McBurney weren't at Swansea anymore, that gap hadn't been filled. And you can see in the outs, look, Gyökeres, that loan is done. Palmer, that loan is done. Gibbs-White, that loan is done as well. Asoro, they get a fee for off to Sweden. But a bit of an admission there by Cooper that the loan business that happened in the summer didn't quite work out. But tweaks, and Hourihane, certainly a very viable player at Championship level in the prime of his career. New year, they actually improve. So this is all very interesting because you think Swansea, knowing what we know now, what we're about to reveal is that they've gone off a cliff. They were doing very well and then they improved. We do have to throw in that they were up against, at times during this season, Brentford on a 21-game streak. Norwich have been excellent all season. They went on a 9-game streak. Watford had a 7, but I think 10 wins in 11 or something. Barnsley had a big streak. Cardiff had a big streak. Feels like Swansea are one of the few teams at the top there not to have some kind of big winning run, but still consistent. I mean, maybe I'm contradicting myself there. I can see 5 wins in 6 there. And look who they beat as well. They beat Watford and they beat Norwich in a brilliant January and February. Couple of defeats to Huddersfield. Huddersfield must have done double on them, mustn't they? And then Bristol City in there. But still, plenty of wins. And by God, 29 points in 13. And now, still up in 3rd position. But just 1 point off that 2 points per game metric that we all love. With 11 to go. Game in hand on Watford. And unfortunately for Swansea, Watford are going to go into hyperspeed. They're already in the middle of it at this point, I must say. And Swansea, the drop-off that maybe some predicted does come. Particularly those last couple of games there. It started to look a bit tired. They just got the job done against Blackburn, didn't they? And against Luton, an early goal sat in. All of those, frankly, that nonsense about late penalties in 2 of the games and late wins. It felt like, were they just coming to the end of the fine margins and finding their way around games? Well, we all know that the answer was yes. Because here comes the collapse. And I do feel a bit sorry for Swansea. I really do, because we've just taken it up to game 35. Was it game 35 or 30? It was game 35, wasn't it? Right in there. It's basically an automatic promotion season all the way up to the last 10 games, isn't it? Some would argue, who have watched every week, which honestly I haven't. I've dipped in and out. I've seen a lot of games, but not all of them. I know there'll be people who are watching this who've watched every minute of Swansea, and they'll say to me, Ben, this was coming for months before. I have heard that theory. Can't argue against it, frankly, because it happened. But it is 35 games of an automatic promotion season, or very close to. And then a horrible slip. Look at that. 4 defeats in a row without any goals. And then Cooper second guesses himself, doesn't he? He goes away from the back 3. It's a back 4, isn't it, against Millwall and Sheffield Wednesday. Couple of wins there. Then he's in betwixt and in between, and going from one to the other with the back 4 and the back 3. A draw against Wycombe. They were 2-0 down against bottom side Wycombe and got back for a point. Defeat at home to QPR late on again. And an Andre Ayew inspired 2-2 at Reading that just kept the wolf from the door in terms of Reading. And I have to say, in that, 8 games interceding period going into that Reading game, they've now gone from the main challenge to Watford in the second place race to they're now down in 6th place, trying to ward off Reading from getting in the playoffs. So just a very, very interesting slip that was punished by Watford, punished by Bournemouth, who went on a good streak, wasn't it? Punished by Barnsley, who caught up at that time. So it does feel like Swansea were punished for their bad run, which was, by my metrics, a relegation form run. If you're below a point per game for any length of game, especially 8 points in 9 games, and especially up at the top of the table, you know you're going to nosedive pretty quickly. And that's left Swansea going from, at game 35, being in that automatic slipstream of Watford with a game in hand, to, okay, just get Reading out the way, keep them arm's length and get in those playoffs. And that's where we are right now. Let's go to the summary. And look, that's a very, very busy page, so I'll try not to go too long on this. So, first of all, I just want to talk about the transition from 2019 to 2020. So, Van der Horn, Gallagher, Brewster out. I think that's really important, because that is a ball-playing centre-back, guaranteed championship goals with Brewster, and Gallagher has played the whole season in the Premier League for West Brom. That is difficult to replace, isn't it? And those 3 players were right through the team when they got in the playoffs, all gone. Guay, Woodman join up again. Yeah, good. We know Cooper's very knowledgeable on the players that have kind of come through, the young players, with his England representative knowledge. And he gets Guay again and he gets Woodman again. So that's good. That's some continuity for last season. They'd had even fewer players from last season's playoff team if he hadn't managed to do that. Bennett, Lowe, Manning and Smith. I've written proven championship depth there. When I say depth, Smith isn't a main starter, is he? Manning couldn't really get past Bidwell. Lowe and Bennett have been. They were both good signings. So getting the returns of Guay and Woodman, and Bennett has been a good player at centre-half, and Lowe has done great work up front, and he shouldn't be criticised for what he's not. He's not a striker. He was never a striker at Wigan or at Pompey, was he? And kind of asked to do that. Looked like he was doing it around Christmas, didn't he? Had a good goal-scoring run, but it's not his gig. is it? And big issue, really. I have to say, Gibbs-White, Latabodier, Palmer, Gyökeres. I think if Cooper could have his time over, I think he'd loan different players, wouldn't he? Especially, or he'd swap all 4 of them for one good championship level striker who can stick in the team every week, who's going to score him some goals. Easier said than done, I know, to find that player, especially on loan. Can only think of, Mitrovic was the guy, wasn't he? He came in on loan and just fired Fulham up to the Premier League in 17-18, didn't he? But you would have to say, to be totally fair to Steve Cooper, that the loan signings in the summer didn't work out, did they? So there are good things as well, though, around that. The tactical continuity I've put. So they finished the season with the back 3, didn't they? And they'd had that late season surge, even if it was just those last 6 games, to catch up with Forest right at the end and get to 70 points, which was a low total to get in the playoffs, wasn't it? Given they're on 77 with 2 to go now. But it looked like they'd laid the foundations last season. We know tactical continuity is always good. Same keeper, managed to get him back. Guay and Norton both in there. The wing-backs who were really, really good for the most part, especially up to the collapse. Bidwell and Roberts were excellent. Grimes and Fulton. Lots of muscle memory in that team now and continuity, which is good. Good results, but underlying numbers show fine margins. I've said it already. I know some people get very emotional about XG and its usage. Most people who use XG and understand it don't think that it's the cure-all to any problem with football and tells you everything you need to know. It doesn't. But what it did tell us is that Swansea were on fine margins, that they were conceding chances but not conceding goals at a desirable rate, and they were creating chances and scoring goals at a very desirable rate, and there wasn't much wriggle room. And if you do have problems with a simple probability statistic, then so be it. But we were saying this, and a lot of Swansea fans were as well, some open-minded ones who are happy to look at these numbers, were saying this predicts a drop-off. I said it myself as well, I have to say. January, Hourihane looked key, undermined by Areola and Roberts' injuries. I think if all 3 of them had been fit, maybe the automatic charge would have continued. Because Cooper essentially took out, Gibbs-White's going to go back and Palmer's going to go back and Gyökeres is going to go back. And arguably the 3 players there, Morris is going to replace Gyökeres, and then Hourihane and Areola are going to replace Gibbs-White and Palmer. Hourihane, really good, and he was great for the first 5 or 6 games, wasn't he? And I just think if they'd have been able to just add a bit more input from those other players. Obviously, they both then went off and got injured. Whittaker's one for the future, isn't he? I just feel... I know there was a link with Obafemi, if I've got his name right there, the Southampton guy. I just feel if they'd have got that dedicated striker as well, take a bit of the weight off Ayew and Lowe, I think that would have made a big difference as well. So, a bit unlucky there with the injuries, especially with the loan players that arrived in January. Striker's still a problem. Fine margins give way and results drop off. We've said that, haven't we? So, still lack of sort of focal point in that squad. We've mentioned back to Brewster and McBurney, etc. And then when the fine margins go, you get that slip, don't you? And with that go results. And then if confidence and things of that nature goes, the psychological side, then you really are struggling, and you're looking down below. You're thinking, who's going to catch us up, rather than up and thinking, is that second place up for grabs? 3-5-2 to 4-3-3, blessing, curse, or both. So I don't know what to say about this, because if we get to the end of the playoffs and Swansea win the playoffs and they've flitted between 2 systems during it, we're all going to sit here and say, aha, brilliant. Cooper tried both systems and he had 2 when he went in, and the other clubs didn't have 2 systems and He kept them guessing. So if that happens, then we'll all say it's a blessing. But is it a curse? I think we know what the other teams are going to do in terms of their systems in the playoffs. Bournemouth are going to play a 4-2-3-1. Barnsley are going to play their crazy 3-4-3. And I think Brentford are going to stick with their 3-5-2. Whereas with Swansea, are they now going to go back all in on the 3-5-2 that was, really decent for the most part of the season? But then they got a couple of good results with the 4-3-3 away, didn't they? At Millwall and can't remember where the other one was. Someone will put that in the comments, won't they? It's on the previous slide anyway. So who knows? And then my last one is just playoffs ? I don't know. If you'd have asked me back when Swansea were pushing for second, who would make a good playoff team, I would have said, well, Swansea, that'd be an excellent playoff team. They're okay without the ball. They're tight. They can win a game via fine margins. They don't need 4 games to create all the chances they need. Ergo, you only get 2 in the playoffs anyway. And it looked like they could have picked somebody off in a sort of tight game, and then you've got that quality from Mayhew and Hurahan and Grimes, etc., to go and get you goals, and the wing backs, etc. I would have said, oh, that's a good playoff team. Whereas now, with those last 8-9 games in mind, I don't know. Feels like of all the teams, they've trended down. But then it doesn't matter if you trend down in the regular season. It matters what you do now in those 3 playoff games, and Swansea are definitely in there. So that is my view on Swansea in the playoffs and how they did it. And just a very confusing one, because I think we've laid out a lot of good work, some continuity, a good transition across seasons, an improvement or matching last season's position. That's guaranteed, whatever happens in the next 2 games. A little bit of bad luck with some January injuries. And basically, they played 35 games of a 46-game season in automatic promotion form, so to speak, and just fell off in the last 8 games. Whether, like some people suggested to me, that was systemic and the problems were already there and that was going to happen, and you can trace the drop-off back further than that, I'm open to that argument. But the numbers say they were very, very close, and you feel like a striker or possible just a couple of those loan deals working better and adding more input. And would we be talking about going into the last couple of games where we're going to get Swansea and Watford on the last day of the season, and we all had that pegged as a possible automatic promotion decider. So you let me know what you think. Have I got the story right? If you don't think so, don't be mean. Just put your ideas in there. It's all right to all share ideas, isn't it? Some people get very emotional, especially when it's somebody who essentially doesn't support their team talking about their team. Imagine that. Goodness me. Imagine that. How dare this guy talk about my team? No, we have a great relationship with lots and lots of Swansea fans. So please do get involved in the comments. Let me know what you think of my analysis of the season and what the hell is going to happen in the playoffs for Swansea. We don't know who they're going to play yet. If you're watching this closer to the event, still 2 games left. So that is not sorted. Anyway, more of these videos coming up. So if you are one of the other fans of one of the other playoff teams, you can check out, I've already done Barnsley, doing Swansea now. We'll obviously do Brentford and Bournemouth as well. So loads of playoff stuff coming in the channel, in the main championship stuff as well. So if you haven't already subscribed, hit subscribe, ring the bell. And that's my views on Swansea. And before I say over and out, I'll say good luck in their playoffs. Obviously, losing playoff semi-finalists last year. And I'll have to do my research. I know, did Ipswich do West Ham too? Yeah, so Ipswich actually might be the ones. Had West Ham 2 seasons in a row and Bolton 2 seasons in a row. I'm trying to think of any other playoff clashes that potentially happened 2 seasons in a row. Might get Brentford, Swansea again. We will see. Anyway, I'm rambling. Thank you for watching. Get your comments in on Swansea and how they got to the playoffs and what the hell is going to happen next. Over and out. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button and to be notified every time we upload. Ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.